Hello YouTube world, my name is Nicholas Montez and you're watching my YouTube channel, Nicholas Montez. Okay, so this video is being filmed Sunday, April 18th. But by the time you're watching this, it is Friday, probably Friday morning, because I have posted this early in the morning before school, because I can at least post it before school. I don't want to post it during school because that'll make you seem like I'm a bad person. But the reason why I'm filming this before, I was gonna film this tomorrow morning on April 19th, but I have a quiz to study for, and I want to use that time to study. So I'm gonna make my video now, and as well as the video that comes out after this. But yeah, today we're doing another MCU list. This time it's not a ranking; it's actually a top 5 list. And we will be doing my top 5 favorite stuff, comic book references that are in the MCU. And with that said, let's get started talking about the references that we all love from the comics. Now, technically, if you do not know, there's not really any changes in the comics. Most of this list will either be changes to the comics, or they basically just brought back stuff that we loved from the comics, or something very cool from the comics, and they put it into this one where they did something different with it. Obviously, with this suit, with Iron Man's Mark I suit, they obviously didn't do anything new. They did the same thing, except since it was the first time they actually ever did something like this, I thought that when Iron Man used his Mark I suit, I thought it was awesome. Really, I thought it was awesome. Granted, it's a little bit more grounded. It's probably the weakest of all the Iron Man suits that he's had over the years. But as the first one, it works really well. He can still fight. He can still punch people in the face. He can shoot missiles, blow fire, and eventually fly at one point for at least 5 seconds. And but there's another cool part about this suit is that there's a scene in the movie where he gets his arm stuck through like this rock wall, and one of the 10-ring soldiers are about to shoot him in the head, and then the bullet just bounces back off to the other guy's head, and it's just so funny. And then it's just like, this is why you need a suit that's made out of metal, because it could deflect off of somebody else. And that's a really good example of how to create a great super suit. So I loved having them do the Mark I suit in the MCU and bringing it back from the comics. Now, in the Captain America comic books, both the ones basically when he was in the Avengers and Civil War, and before he became part of the Avengers, when he was a soldier in World War II, basically his costume was what the costume was in the first Avenger when he was doing the shows. And for me, I thought the way they did the 1940s costume, the way he kind of used it, I thought did a very good job, because they didn't just use the costume to go fight wars and fight with the Avengers. They didn't use it in future films. No, obviously the suit that he uses now with the ears attached to the helmet, not like sticking out, that's cool. I like the way they did something new with it, where they kind of told World War II shows, and it was really cool to me. So I like the way they did something new with it, and they didn't just go the same route with like the way the comics did, as well as the past TV shows and movies have done with this costume. So I like the way they did it in this movie. Alright, so you can definitely say, like, you can look back at all the other MCU movies, that they basically do, because they're all based from the comics, you can definitely say that all of them feel like they just been brought out of all the action sequences feel like they just been put out of a comic book. But when you really think about certain movies, such as Captain America the Winter Soldier, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, they don't really feel like action, comic book action sequences. For example, Captain America the Winter Soldier doesn't really feel like comic book action. Granted, it has ships crashing down on big gigantic cities, but the action, what it's supposed to be doing is political thriller action, spy action, hand-to-hand combat. I mean, granted, you do see that in the comic books, but you don't really, it doesn't feel comic booky because it feels more like an action movie. Or think about Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. That movie kind of has cartoonish action, Looney Tunes action, when we're talking about the spaceships flying around and shooting all over the place, or when Star-Lord is fighting Ego and he literally turns into Pac-Man. Like, that's not from the comics. I wouldn't really say cartoonish, but that's Marvel's new style of doing some new action. So there's a couple films that I felt like brought the comic book action sequences to life, and there's really 4 movies that I felt like did that. The first one is in Captain America: The First Avenger, and there's 2 scenes I felt like that did that. Is when Captain America throws his shield and the explosion is happening behind him, the picture I used for this number, and then you have the one where he blows up the tank and then jumps off of it. Like, that is some very fantastic comic book action, and I love it. And then you go to the Avengers, obviously, another thing with explosions, where you get the Qatari blowing up the entire city of New York in Manhattan. Obviously, it feels like a comic book. So obviously, it's probably the most comic booky final fight of all time. And then you get films like Captain America: Civil War, where when King T'Chaka dies and the whole in Vienna blows up and the smoke like starts to reappear, like that looked like comic book stuff. And then you go to Avengers: Infinity War, where it's a scene in Wakanda where Falcon and War Machine are trying to stop the Outriders, trying to not let them in Wakanda, and the War Machine just starts exploding them, and then you see the Wakandan army, Hulkbuster, and then you see the massive explosion that happens around the barrier, and it just looks so comic book with the fire and stuff. So that's the best thing about these movies, is that while they do go back to the class, while they do make the films look like they just come out of a comic book, they like to do something new with it, and that's what I love about these movies, is that they go back to the original, but they also do something new. So if you're wondering, you're probably thinking, what are you talking about? There's never been a movie in the MCU or a plot line about Hulk having his own planet in the MCU. What are you talking about? Well, technically, there's not planet. When I mean Planet Hulk, I'm not talking about Hulk having his own planet and there's a bunch of Hulks everywhere. I'm not talking about that. What I mean by Planet Hulk is that there's this storyline in the comic books where Iron Man, Doctor Strange, Mr. Fantastic, and Black Bolt sent Hulk away to another planet in a spaceship to live happily and free all day, but then he crash landed on Sakaar, and he was taken over. Which is in the comics is led by the Red King, and he was basically forced to fight all these different gladiators, and I believe he fought Beta Ray Bill at one point. And if you're wondering what the Planet Hulk plotline is, it's actually in Thor Ragnarok, because Thor crash lands on Sakaar, and instead of the Red King being the leader of Sakaar, it's the Grand Master. But I think the way they handled like the Planet Hulk plotline I thought was really well done. The way they kind of switched some stuff up, I felt like when they had the relationship between Hulk and Valkyrie, you can definitely tell that Valkyrie was kind of like that Hulk's wife that she had, that lady, that gladiator that Hulk had feelings for, and you can definitely see that the Grandmaster is basically the Red King, and there's a couple characters that they do use like Korg and Meek, which are very different from what we saw in the Planet Hulk film and the comics. So there's just a lot of stuff that they actually brought from the movie and the comics, and I feel like hopefully in I want to get a short Disney Plus series where we see the backstory of what Hulk was doing since he landed on Sakaar, and I want to see a full-on Hulk and Beta Ray Bill fight. I just want to see him take out gladiators because we haven't really seen that. Granted, he's fought. Granted, he has fought Thor. He has fought robots, soldiers. He's fought a lot of those guys. But I really want to see him fight gladiators in space. And I just want to see all the Hulk goodness. And hopefully he can fight a dragon at one point. I want to see that too. So it did a lot of great stuff, but I want to see more. I want to see flashbacks of what Hulk was doing on Sakaar when he was not in Civil War. Okay, so if you're wondering, yes, they do use the Civil War plotline in the MCU, and honestly, the comics and in the MCU Civil War storyline, it's very different. So in the comics, it does, but at the same time, it is a little bit similar at the same time. So on the differences, actually on the similarities, the way the way the superheroes fight, the cause of it, in the MCU, what we've learned is that there was this fight with the Avengers, with Captain America's new team, with Captain America, Falcon, Black Widow, and Scarlet Witch, where they were tracking down Rumlow, and Scarlet Witch was gonna save Cap, but instead of doing that, she killed Crossbones and a lot of people in Lagos. And in the comics, it plays a little bit similar to that too, where there's these 4 heroes and they kill a lot of people. And in both of these, in both the movie and the comics, the Sokovia in the comics it's called the Superhuman Registration Act, and in the movie it's called the Sokovia Accords, because it has to focus on the Avengers. And basically in the comics, it's not really all about the Avengers. It's more of the entire world of superheroes, the entire world of Earth superheroes. I don't know if it has to do anything with space out there, but yeah. So it has to do with the superheroes all over the world. It's not just the Avengers in the comics, but they do and there's characters that you would see, like Spider-Man and Black Panther join at Cap's side one point. Captain Marvel is in it, and I believe some Guardians of the Galaxy are in it too. So yeah. But the reason why I put this as my number 5 is because I just love the way they handled it. Because you get to see, because it's an Avengers storyline, because it's still a Civil War storyline, but it's more of an Avengers storyline. And you see the differences between Steve Rogers and Tony Stark, as some sides are wrong in certain ways and some sides are right in certain ways. Where Captain America, he can't sign this because he can't trust the government because of what happened in the Winter Soldier. And if you remember back in the film, he was like, what if there's somewhere we need to go? What if there's someone we need to go and they don't let us? That's so agreeable. And then even when Tony Stark says it, where Steve's like, but the options have it. Yeah, but people have agendas, and agendas change. And there's so much conflict throughout it. Beyond that, you also get some awesome moments. Just the way the story is handled in the MCU is just so crafted very well, and it really does a great job of being a part of the MCU, kind of setting up other characters' arcs with like having Tony Stark going on this epic journey from being away from the Avengers for a long time. It's so crafted very well. So for me, that's why it's my favorite storyline or reference from the comics of the MCU. So there you have it. That is my list of my top 5 favorite references of the comics in the MCU. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. My Instagram is Marvel6, and my TikTok name is Marvel1Fan. If you guys don't understand those names, head to my About section so you can follow me on those social medias. I'm also on Letterboxd, and you guys can find me on Letterboxd, same name as my Instagram, Marvel6, Marvel_6_. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.